seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down. It's the Sunday Sesh. It's been a while since we've done this Sunday Sesh. And this Sunday Sesh is a bit special because we're introducing a new contributor onto the bus in the form. You'll have seen his name in the comments plenty of times. Annoyingly better looking than me. But I've got over it. I've got over it. STEVO, Matt. How the devil are you, mate?
Aye, no bad. No bad, aye.
Welcome
busy weekend.
Aye, mate. It's been a busy bus. I tell you what, STEVO, see when you go on to, check the analytics and all that bullshit, right, on the channel, kind of a bit of a groggy head this morning, right? And I'm like, that says 2 hours, 59 minutes yesterday's show. I was like, that must be a mistake. Kept looking. And I've not watched any of it back, right? None of it back. But there must have been a segment on like Danny McGrain's left foot or something in there if we were talking for 2 hours, 59 minutes. So to all yous who managed to last the distance yesterday, a massive thank you. We've got a new member in there as well already, Steve, to start the show, Douglas Margison. Welcome aboard the Boise bus, mate. Nice one, son.
Bringing him in already.
You are, mate. You are. You're my poster boy now, mate. You know what I mean? Next t-shirt merchandise, big STEVO Matt. Now, let's get into chatting a wee bit about Celtic. I don't know if anyone was watching the other game today, but I tell you what, STEVO, I thought that was a third goal. There was a pitch invasion. I'm telling you, man, they're awfully giddy about closing the gap to 9 points.
I didn't watch it. I genuinely didn't watch it. Against my better judgment, I didn't. I just, that way I thought I knew it was going to happen. I didn't want to put myself through it. I know.
Because we were going to do this at 4 o'clock, and then I sort of said to Steve, look, it's really weird. I presumed Rangers were playing at 12:30 today. And I was like, look, they're actually playing at 4, the exact time we're going to go live now. Hey, no offence to any who's watching the bus, right? But I know the numbers. I know the algorithms. Yous all watch them. I know yous watch them because whenever we go live and they're playing, it's quite quiet. So I was like, maybe it would be better going a wee bit like later if that suits you. And you went, I was like, and hopefully it'll be an Arabs win. And you went, wouldn't bet on it, mate. 2-0.
No. And do you know what? There's nothing wrong with watching them. Like, one thing I can't stick is see people where they'll either say, what do you watch them for? Or why do they watch you? Because you want to watch what's around you. But as I say, I had other stuff on the day and I wasn't going to kill my afternoon.
No. I mean, the thing is, for me, it's like it's a win-win right now if you watch them, because you've got to accept, like, the points gap at the top. All they can do is try and cling on to the coattails right now of what Celtic's doing, right? And that is barely clinging on to the coattails, or it becomes comedy and they fall further behind. So it's not really the end of the, like, for me, it's kind of like, it's quite a bulletproof sort of viewing, you know what I mean? So, I think they were good for 2 minutes today. Do you know what I mean? They got a couple of goals. Well done. It's 9 points. It's equal to, they've got it back to 20 goals difference. So we're in a commanding position. STEVO, obviously you've not had the chance to be on the bus until now, but I take it, you know, so far in the 22-23 season. Am I sticking? I don't know. Am I? Sorry, mate.
No, just on you go, mate. It just stuck there a wee bit. So, sorry, what you said?
No, the 22-23 season, I take it you've been pretty happy with how it's went so far.
Aye, do you know, I always like to say I'm a bit of a realist when I look at it. I think we've been pretty solid, I think in terms of the game, that obviously it's been a week over now. I don't think that it wasn't our best performance, was it? I think that we, by our own design, we sort of fell out that game a wee bit when we largely controlled. So I'd maybe say, you know, bar the loss, obviously, which is a loss, and that goes without saying, and then the game there last weekend, I think it's been fairly solid. I mean, you look at the goals are flying in, we're rarely conceding, to be fair, you know, here and there, and no real change. I'm just hoping that, you know, some of these signings and stuff that we're talking about maybe getting in, and add to that and just push on, you know what I mean? So I think we're in a good place.
It's funny, Steve, like this. See, to me, the past week has shown me, I'll give you an example, right, as to highlight just how good a place Celtic are in right now, because the last 7 days has been spent by some quarters trying to work out how out of form and how, you know, off the boil Matt O'Reilly is, for example. And I'm like,
yeah,
if that's our biggest problem right now, Matt O'Reilly getting 7 out of 10 instead of 8 out of 10, I'm pretty okay with that, Steve. Do you know what I mean?
Aye. I mean, I think, see me talk about O'Reilly, for example, right? That's the thing. That what are our major gripes that maybe some guys have not quite kicked on since the break and maybe started the way that they finished.
Yeah.
If that's it, you know, form's up and down, but we've got a decent squad. We've got plenty of depth here, so I don't think it's that much an issue. You know, guys can sort of be all right. You can't be brilliant every single game, and that's what a squad's there to do. So, you know, why not? Doesn't matter.
Preach it, Steve-O, mate. I couldn't agree more. Let's talk about the squad, because obviously yesterday, I genuinely, Steve, this is my honest take. I did see it tweeted, right? I'm not going to lie, but I went, that is what I think we started a stronger team at home to Kilmarnock yesterday than we did at Ibrox.
I always said about the game against Rangers, and I was quite surprised because we did start off strong, but against Kelly as well. Second half I thought was brilliant. First half, it was like we've seen lots of times, similar to Aberdeen and the like, loads of possession, doing all the right things, and it just no coming off. Second half, it was like a flip of a switch. It was as if it all fell into place. And it probably could have been and should have been a few more, to be honest with you. I just think people, you know, there's two halves, obviously, in a game of football. And like the likes of the game against Rangers, because the second half we fell away, people forget the overall general performance.
It's true.
And I think that yesterday it was spot on. I was sitting watching the first half and a bit annoyed they went scored, but I knew it was coming, you know.
Aye. There's a real assurance about the Celtic team, right, under Ange. It's undeniable, Steve-O, that we've had games. I'll give you a perfect example, and it's a bit of recency bias as well. Pittodrie. That stage where McGregor scores, I'm normally in panic mode by then that it's still 0-0, right?
Yep.
I wasn't panicking that night. And I don't know about you if you're in the same boat, but I felt like it's coming. It's coming. And that to me is the sign of the fact.
Yeah.
That's the sign of something I've not really experienced all that many times being a Celtic fan, because we've maybe had teams that went on longer unbeaten runs under Rodgers, probably better starting 11 under Martin O'Neill, and yet they put you through the ringer when it was at that time. Yeah, I felt this mad, you know, sort of zen, even at 85 minutes, mate, that it's coming. How much is that from how we're approaching games, or how much does it actually come? We're going to talk about managers, right, and their body language and what they say and how that reflects, and we'll talk about Mickey Beale, of course we're going to. But do you think maybe that sort of aura of calm that you get as a fan now, because it is a bit alien to us Celtic supporters, right? Let's get it right. It is a bit alien to us. But do you think that's coming from the team and just the fact they just keep going through, not the motions, that sounds a wee bit lazy, but they keep just doing what they're ingrained to do, right, from the training pitch? Or do you think it maybe comes from the demeanour of our boss, who has brought so much calm to all things Celtic?
I think it's a bit of both. If you ever hear the manager talking, the one thing he always says when he gets asked some stupid questions is he usually says he's, put a system in play. The players are well drilled and they believe in what they're doing, right? So it's this, hate saying it, folk will say like trust the process and whatever, but it's like trust the game plan. He never really looks flustered. The only time he looks flustered is if we do mental things like boot long balls, because that's not what he wants to do. So, as you say, 85 minutes at Pataudry, it was knocking on the door, it was coming, you were expecting it. And people say that was a late goal, but in the sort of what we're seeing, we added on time. Theoretically, there was still 10 minutes of that game left to go if you want to add that on. So, and I think as well, obviously we're talking about Celtic, but just to compare it against what we were saying about Rangers as the sort of closest rivals, anytime I've watched Rangers, particularly the game where it was against Aberdeen, that goal never looked like it was coming. And I think that's a different thing. Like over the years, sometimes when you've been watching Celtic, particularly through some of the rough times, you were worried. Yes. You're saying, where's the goal coming from? And it looked frantic and it looked scrambled. Whereas as you're saying, I'm the exact same. You're sitting there and you're like, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. And I think that's a combination between us being so well done at what we do, but also teams will eventually, as the game wears out, they'll start to drop that level. And that wee split second is when we get in. Something turns into a goal.
But you're bang on, Steve. I mean, it's funny because I'm talking about the calm and does that come from the manager? Obviously, the mantra is we never stop. But I don't know if you remember that full sort of 2-minute spiel. But it's fucking eerie how accurate it is that Ange was saying that day in the training ground. It's prophetic.
It's exactly as he says. I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but it's words along the lines of, we stop at we stop here, we stop at half time, full time. If they want to, we'll take advantage. And that's exactly what I'm getting at. It's small, fine margins where it's just their legs are done, they're just slightly out of position. It creates that wee bit of gap, and both there's your goal. And I think that's where the calmness comes. The players know that it's so intricate and it's so intense and it's so constant that eventually just wears teams down. You can only sit deep for so long, and then you'll just get picked off. So it's calmness just through that.
Also, as well, it's mad because I was talking about an individual, right? So I was talking about Maeda, and I said, people are now aware, STEVO, right? When Maeda's closing you down, it's not just a player's closing you down. Maeda's closing you down. To take that a wee bit further, I also think when that first whistle goes off, right, minute 1, right, we're about to start, I think teams are aware of a high press. Any team that plays a high press, a team's playing a high press. Now it's Angie's Celtic are going to do the high press. And it creates, again, I think, a level of this steam train's coming. It's how do we know what's coming. Celtic could hand them what their tactics are going to be and write it all down a bit of paper because everyone now knows. It's how they cope with that. That's the biggest problem here. And I think we're now seeing it maybe in individual glimpses with the likes of your Maedas and things like this, right? But actually as a team, I just look at Celtic right now and go, we're not even a conundrum. It's there in front of you what we do, what we're about. Deal with it. Good luck.
Exactly. Exactly. And I remember you saying that a couple of shows ago about it's this idea of like a presence, or Carter Vickers is at the back. I'm up against him, or I'm up against, well, obviously he's been hit or miss, but I'm up against Juranovic, or I'm up against Maeda. You know what you're getting, and it's kind of these guys are now starting to get more than just people talking about it. It's sort of it's their identity. He's always on you. He doesn't give you a second, and I think that sort of can play when you face up to your man and you see what you've got and you know what they've done before. There's that sort of, I'm not sure about that. And that gives you a wee advantage for the kickoff. Like, look at Tav last week. He was getting tortured.
But look at his mistakes. See the errors that they made. I know Morelos is one he would have done any given day, right? Because he's clueless. Like, I just, football's no for him. But see Tavernier's weak touch. It's because it's Maeda running at him. I am convinced of that is not, it's the one guy he knew of. If he presses you, you're in soapy bubble. And he's realised that so quickly that he's took this absolute, brain damage of a touch. And it's just Maeda's punished him for it. Because about 5 minutes later, Maeda closes down Goldson. Now, Tavernier about 31. These are two, Rangers' more experienced players that have been now in the Glasgow bubble for 4 or 5 years each. And Maeda it was again closing Goldson down, and he just hoofed it out the park, Steve. And I went, they've definitely spoke about him in the lead up to the game. Now, these are the sort of hype jobs we want in our players, right? Oh fuck. See, remember that Maeda gets right tight, and remember he's rapid. So see if in doubt, get the ball out. Do you know what I mean? Then he shite yourself today. And if they start talking about one of our players like that, start thinking about it when Jota's coming off the bench.
No.
And then they got Barisic. Mind if that Abada loves a running at the back post. Oh, fuck, aye. He scored the last 2 times against you doing that. And it's like, suddenly there's all these puzzles to solve. Now, we're talking about a big squad, though, here. I've listed off a few names there in my examples, Steve-O.
Yeah.
Celtic are undeniably this window going to let at least one go, okay? That doesn't need to be one of the players I've mentioned, Steve-O. It could be Juranovic. It could be Giakoumakis. I think, to be honest, that I think there was talk about O'Reilly maybe 2 months ago. That seems to have died down, and that suits me fine because I think there's much more to come for him. He's a 21-year-old laddie, and folk forget that. I mean, but out of those two, Steve, just very quickly, see those two. If one or both were to go, how big a loss is it to Celtic in the grand scheme of things when we look at where we're sitting right now, squad-wise?
I mean, I think if we were talking Juranovic and Giakoumakis, I think it's pretty obvious to say that the biggest loss is going to be Giakoumakis for the striker requirement and what he sort of offers. But, for what we've seen, he's cutting a sort of bit of, a rough, sort of unsettled figure, right? So I think both, to be honest, I can't split it. If we're saying Juranovic, I think we could lose Juranovic. I've not got a problem. I think he's definitely the one that would be guaranteed to move on, so I wouldn't have any issues with that. But then what you're saying to yourself is, are we getting left? If Juranovic was the only one to go, is that leaving us with a uncontent Giakoumakis, at which point he's almost useless?
Yep.
And that's the way to look at it. So it's like I saw something today. I didn't notice it personally myself, but folk had said that they'd mentioned that Harry Kewell was out on the pitch with Giakoumakis sort of near the end and sort of having a word with him and an arm around him because he looked visibly frustrated, almost as if he was trying to calm him down and take him off the pitch. Saw a couple of commenters on Twitter mentioning that. So I said, I didn't personally see it myself. That was people in the stadium. So if anybody else saw it, it'd be interesting to see if they also saw this and what it looked like. But supposedly it looked as if he was putting the arm around him saying, "Oh, get yourself off the park, let's go, big man." And calm him down. So that's not a good sign.
Interesting. That's interesting, Steve. I didn't see that myself, and I was watching it quite closely, even at the end of the game. I know the time that you're talking about, but I didn't remember that part. If someone in the comments did pick up on that, let us know. I felt as well that, see, when Giakoumakis has been coming on of late, his demeanour I've not liked. Not because I'm actually holding it against him per se, right? I'm actually looking at him going, I want that lion. I want him revved up because I think he's a dangerous player when he's got a chip on his shoulder. Do you know what I mean, Steve-O? And see, when he's coming on a wee bit dejected, I'm going, I kind of see it from your point of view. I've kind of felt a bit sorry for him. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I actually kind of get it, mate. I don't think you've had a fair crack. But the one thing with me, with these two potential departures is, right back, we've been very proactive, okay? Because Alistair Johnston's came in, and by the way...
Oh, he looks class. He looks good, by the way. Aye.
He's got the bit of dig. He's got that bit of dig that we need for Scottish football. I probably said all this yesterday. Folk are like, that's a fucking rerun. I can't even
repeating yourself.
But I liked what I've seen for him. But that was a player brought in ahead of a potential exit for Juranovic. That's proper proactive, for Celtic especially. Good but the Giakoumakis one, we need to get very clear here. We're haggling, if you believe the reports, and there's a bit of. They're quite wide range now. The number of reports that have linked us with Choge Young Sung. Sorry.
I wrote it down, so I knew you were going to mention it.
Did you?
I said Choge Sung. I don't know if that's right. That sounds about right.
I think it's pronounced Gway or something like that in the middle. But anyway, who cares? We'll call him Cho. So there's been quite widespread reports about our interest in him. So I think we can safely say it's concrete, right? Celtic are interested. But one thing we can't afford to do that we've seen in the past is fuck about with this one, Steve-O. If it's between the 2-3 million bracket and we're haggling over a few $100,000 here and there, I don't think if we're resigned to Giakoumakis potentially exiting, and rumours have got stronger about Urawa Reds going there, I don't think we can afford to be sort of laid back in our approach. We need to be
No.
aggressive in getting his replacement in, Steve-O. Like we were Alistair Johnson. Get it done. Don't fuck about, because the one thing now with Juranovic going is it's completely Celtic's gift to what price and what time they want to sell him, because we've now got that position
Somebody's
secured.
there.
Tony Ralston, Johnston. Up front, Giakoumakis goes and you are left with Kyogo.
Yeah.
That is not as healthy a position to be in. The reports worry me. Celtic are lowballing offers for a guy. When I look at the region of the money, I just think, if Andrew's identified him, and I think it's safe to say he has, judging by the number of reports that are linking us with him, go get him, Steve-O. Don't dick about here.
I mean, I think the thing that's worrying me, if you want to use that word, is it's less to do with the idea of wanting to get a better price for him. It's more to do with who we're supposedly up against, which is Mainz and Fenerbahce, right? Now, you'd like to think that Celtic are going to be the far more appealing option out of the two, right? And I think perhaps if we are trying to play a bit of sort of hard ball and low ball or whatever with the price, I think it's because we are treating those other teams with a wee bit of contempt. Whereas it's like almost a case of saying, well, this is what we're offering. I mean, he's not going to sign for they two, is he? He'd rather sign for us, so that's the price. And I think maybe, I hope I'm wrong, but maybe there's that wee element of sort of similar to the McGinn situation, where it's, well, you don't want to go to Aston Villa, do you? You're a Celtic supporter, you want to play for Celtic.
And then we know what happened.
But I think, I absolutely, as you say, if we're on, and it looks, forget the whole Giakoumakis might be going, he just doesn't look like he's doing it now. So you need somebody in, because if the longer he's about and he's in that mindset, he's not going to be of any use, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think they need to get somebody in.
I think you're absolutely right. I'll be honest though, see, even if Giakoumakis was firing the new, Steve-O, I ain't convinced two strikers is a forward thinking. Like, if we want to get to the levels we know Celtic can get to, right? I think Andrew's looked at Celtic with subsidiary eyes, right? He's just looked at a team that goes Champions League access on the reg, right? 60,000 fan base, worldwide support. He's like, I think I'm only a winner going there, because they've not achieved anything in the last 15 years on a European stage that they should, and they get a free pass nearly into Europe every year. I don't think a European force, if Celtic were to be that, can run with just two strikers on form anyway.
No, and that's the thing she says, but you use the term we're left with Kyogo. It's not a bad thing to be left with, but what we need is, I know what you mean by it, is that sort of hot and cold that he sometimes does. He's and we've discussed this previously, his numbers are brilliant, but see, if you were to look at conversion rate numbers, they're maybe not as good as they could be.
Yep.
And then people are saying play Maeda through the front. Now, again, Maeda's great at doing all these things, but I've still yet to be convinced of putting him through the middle as a striker. So I would always want somebody that is a fully recognised striker that's scoring goals. And like this, the boy Cho, he's been scoring goals.
Yes.
His season reflects that he's been scoring goals.
Correct.
That's what you need.
I definitely, and do you know what? This is the other thing now. I'm going to flip this a wee bit, because if we're playing hardball over a 2 to 3 million price tag, right, and say we're in the lower region of the 2 million plus mark, and they're wanting closer to the 3 million, who do we think we are then to command fees from Japan, a league that we have absolutely raided in the past 18 months for buttons, right? Buttons. I mean, we've just signed the J League Player of the Year for £1 million, right? Roughly. How much can we realistically demand for Giakoumakis to that league?
Well, I was looking at it, being a bit of a sad case, I was looking at the sort of thing, thinking about the numbers, right? So just on the comment there, actually,
ladies and gentlemen,
it makes a good point about the profile and age and stuff, right? So I just don't want to bore you, because I know we're not we're not a stats person, right? But I was looking at the two of them as a comparison, right? Okay. So Cho has the 136 senior appearances at club, right? 51 goals, 16 assists, and internationally he's 6 and 20, right? He's 24.
Yep.
Giakoumakis, who's 4 years older than, bear in mind, he's 242 appearances, 82 goals, 14 assists, with 4 years extra. Now, if you look at it that way and you look at his age and where he's sitting, 24, given salary and stuff like that, I think he's absolutely perfect, because, listen, I'm a big fan of Giakoumakis, right? But see, if you look through his bar one season in the Eredivisie, he was playing for absolute
Eredivisie, if you will.
Eredivisie. He was playing
yes, with absolute
absolute plankton, journeyman garbage teams with a relatively horrendous record, right? And he had a purple patch and he's hit the struck, and we've got him in, right? But there's a reason why we got him in. Let's be honest, there's a reason why we got him.
Well, the team got relegated.
His team got relegated. But in terms of how much are we going to sell him, come back to what you're saying, the teams that we've been getting linked with, Midtjylland and the Red Diamonds in Japan, they don't strike me as teams that are going to spend a lot of money, are they?
No. This is where we need to then go, okay, maybe based on what you've just said there, Steve-O, the eyes of football don't hold Giakoumakis in the light that maybe I do, right? And I've obviously shone a torch on him, and I hold him, I love him, right? And he maybe is a bit of a cult hero. I've seen some fans on Twitter going, oh, the cultists will be greeting and all that about Giakoumakis. And I think it's a strange take for a guy who was joint top scorer last year, and I thought was, in fact, essential to us winning that league in the absence of Kyogo.
Oh, 100%. That
being said, see if, the valuation of a player, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, right? See if no one's going to get near that it's worth Celtic's time selling him. He is, whether he's happy or not, tied on a long-term deal. There's got to be some sort of give here. There's got to be some sort of compromise made on what he thinks he's worth and what we want to pay. And there should be a bit of, and if you're not going to get 6 million plus for a guy that we know his goal to minutes conversion rate at Celtic is phenomenal, right? I don't really see the point in going, oh, well, the first bidder that came in was Midtjylland, as you say, or Red Diamonds. Let's just let him go for 4 or 5 million pounds. I'm like, how? I think Cho's got to come in anyway. For me, that's been identified because we need to bolster that. We've got about 15 number sixes. Do you know what I mean? 2 strikers. I'm like, that's weird. We've got 5 centre halves right now, Steve-O. So let's, there's one area in that team I think we could go with another player competing for the jersey. That would be up top. Now, when it comes to Giakoumakis, okay, maybe you're right. When you look at his record and you look at his CV, there might be many chief execs out there going, I ain't bidding that much for him. That's fine. That might not then make it worth Celtic's while to sell. And therefore, I would say, provided you can get him back on song, which I know you've spoke about there, is there any point in keeping an unhappy player? Let's flip that and go, is there any point though in selling a proven goal scorer for something that we won't be able to replace for that sort of money?
I think we've got to look at it with business eyes, and I hate that, right? Because we all want the best players, but fundamentally, you want players who want to be here, right? Now, talking about how much he's worth and what he's getting paid and what he thinks he's worth, I don't know did you see that thing that was going about supposedly wages? And right, so I think Giakoumakis 12k or something, right?
Something like that.
So
sorry for underselling you, Giakoumakis, by the way. But
what I mean is, what if he's unhappy with terms? What have we offered them? When you look at that, if you look at that graph with our table, the other sort of high earners, if you want to call it, most of them, your Abadas and Haksabanovic, they're all around that 15 to 17k. Is that what he's wanting? Now, the problem is,
promises were made when he joined too.
It's hard to tell. Let's see the whole promises thing. I don't know, but I think you should say that. I don't buy that. I think that's a thing of old where you come in, you get a handshake and say, "Aye, big man, this is what will happen if you do it." I might be wrong. I know nothing about contracts, but I'd like to think if you sign a contract, it's going to say you're on X a month, a week. Sorry, if we win the league, it goes up by X amount.
Yeah.
If you score X amount of goals, it goes up to that.
Yep.
And then after your bonuses and incentives, we'll renegotiate, I say 5%, 10% on top, and that would be signed. So you'd be no doubt, surely, what your maximum that you could get after you had met these objectives were. So if you weren't happy with, why would you sign it in the first place, is what I would argue there. So as I say, listen, at the end of the day, saying about do you keep him or do you try to reinvigorate him, it's hard to tell. Is the only thing that's going to get him happy is more money at us? And then you've got to look at it and say, do we think long term he's worth it? Now, I hate this, he's over the hill and he's a certain age. He is 28, right?
Just
so he's got a bit. I know, but what I mean is he's got, yourself, players once they hit a certain age, they've got a threshold of how long you can get a fee for them.
Yep.
All right. So if we had them for another year, 2 year, and he's knocking on the door of 30 or that, he might be not worth as much more than he is at this moment in time. So you say to yourself, is it worth keeping him, or is it worth flipping him and getting somebody in that you think can
And there
push you
comes the
forward?
conundrum. There comes the conundrum, because I take the point on board with the age, right? And I think maybe this is the optimum value time. But then I go back to your point about the two clubs linked, and you go, optimum value comes with a couple of different sort of avenues and pathways, and you go, optimum value can also be dictated by the level of club interested in the said player. So if it's Midtjylland in Denmark, whose record I think is £5 million for a player that they spent twice last summer, and then the J League club, Red Diamonds, I'm looking at that going, are you really okay? Age-wise, you might be saying optimum value is 28, but I look at those clubs and go, are they going to provide that optimum value? I highly doubt that, and that leaves you with a different conundrum to try and solve, Steve-O.
I mean, then you've got to put it back on the player, haven't you? So if he's got high expectations himself, and you say, right, here's your options, mate. There's somebody coming in for you from Japan, and there's a team, Midtjylland, that are coming in for you, but they're frightened because they can't afford £5 million. Then surely him and his agent should be sitting down and sort of thinking, right, well, am I as a sellable asset as I think I am?
Exactly. That's a great point. I think you're spot on. And this is the thing. We'll talk about the other potential departure, like we were hinting at. You've got Juranovic there, who I think a lot of us maybe felt would already been agreed to go from the 1st of January. I did. And there was two sides to it. There was the hopeful side that deal's done. That's why Johnston's came in, Celtic all organised. And then there was the fear that, tell me we didn't agree the fee before the World Cup and potentially we don't get his true value. Actually, now we're on the 8th of January and the strongest links of late have been Monza. And I'm going, again, if that's the level of interest in him, you ain't going to get this supposed optimum value that we so desire.
Do you know, that one's wild because it just makes you think. It just makes you think, like, how much is of these reports that we get legit, or is it just an agent firing something out there, right? Because we went from Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Man United to Monza on loan for 6 months with an obligation to buy.
For like 7 million or something. I know.
I mean, that's some departure. That's no as if it's like, right, well, it was Chelsea, but now it's Brighton. You know, that's leagues and absolute the top of the top to like Monza. So,
and the longer it goes on, by the way, that optimum value, let's say it was 25 million quid, right? Let's say that was the dream fee. That's diminishing with every day that passes. That drops because what actually will spark the interest, by the way, will be the level of offer made by the first club that bites. And that will then trigger, if there is supposed interest for the big boys, word will go around the campfire, right?
Yep.
Say it is West Ham, Chelsea, something like that, right? Have bid. Suddenly those other clubs that say they were genuinely interested, their ears peak and they go, all right, okay, right, we'll need to make a move. And before you know it, then you're getting close to that optimum value. Right now we've got a guy, I think Celtic aren't starting because of selling him. But 8 days in, now obviously there's still 23 days to go the window, but I'll make the point again. If it were to drag on to the 31st of January and he does still inevitably leave, that valuation that we get come the 31st of January is less than what we could command as of today, the 8th.
Absolutely. I think, and see, talking about getting their value and driving it up or whatever, this is where it becomes tricky, right? Because I've just said about Giacomakis, do you want to play a guy, or do you want to keep a guy that's unhappy, right? But then surely the only way that you can reinvigorate and get them back to the front of people's minds is they have to be playing. And surely this sounds stupid, and this is one thing I can never get my head around with professional footballers, right? I get the whole idea, don't play them because if they get injured, we could end up with nothing and nobody will buy them, right? But see if, like, we've got Juranovic and nobody's come in for him, or you've got Giacomakis just talks of average teams coming in for him. See if they think that, it's been sitting 30th, and then out where Barcelona will just take you, mate. That's not how it works. Surely they should be saying, and Juranovic's prime, see him against the Rangers game, he was terrible. But you should have been looking at that game and going, massive game on the TV. I want to show them what I've got. What a chance what an opportunity to put in a performance.
Do you think he
So
was
surely
unwell?
guys
I think he was. I think he might have been guilty
un,
of
un,
being part of the bug because there's no
unwell.
way. His
The only,
football
the
was
only
unwell.
yeah, his football was no well. It was red raw. I mean, honestly, I've never seen, and possibly the worst performance I've seen in a Celtic Rangers game. Horrendous.
I
And
agree.
and I was at the start thinking I would have played him. I said if he's fit, I would have played him over Johnson. And it's
What do you
wild,
think's
but
caused it then? Do you think that's a mental? And this is the danger. Let's go to what you're saying about Giacomakis. The same applies for Juranovic. If it means his demeanor, is he's mentally checked out, Steve-O, that's quite dangerous because you've seen now the evidence on the park. If someone thinks they're out off ski and they've seen the replacement already come in the doors whilst they're still there, he's probably checked out. Now, I know there was a bug going round, and I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he was suffering from that as well. Because it was, I mean, that can't be the same guy I watched play Brazil. It just can't be. It doesn't matter if he was out of position either, by the way. It doesn't matter.
Do you know what the thing is? What you're talking about is that I think he was ill or whatever, and things like this. So you just come back to just finish off on the whole who's he going to end up at team thing, right? He runs a risk of damaging his own value by taking the hump and not doing anything, as does Giacomakis, because see if he's just sitting there and nobody's coming in from him, and it gets to, the 11th hour on transfer deadline day, and the only offer he's got in is some middle of the road team for France or, relegation fodder in Italy. But look, mate, are you sure you want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if these guys have got the right mindset and when they get a chance, they come on and try to do what they've previously done before, then it maybe gives them more options. Does he just, because what he could end up doing, and Celtic might do is, look, we just want rid of you. We'll clean our nose, 6-7 million. And you know what? Good luck, mate. There you go. You can go back to another completely average team like where you've came from before.
Aye, because the other thing
and good luck building yourself back up again.
Here's the other thing though, Steve-O. Let's say it has a change of heart based on the interest, the levels of interest in him not being what his agent might have filled his head with or filled the papers with. Where does he turn to get back in the Celtic team? We've already technically signed his replacement.
Who's been fantastic, and you're not going to change him.
No. And that's the thing though. I want to make this abundantly clear. This isn't us complaining, by this is us seeing it from Juranovic's prism. From a club point of view, from a football fan's point of view, I want the best possible players competing for each jersey. This is from a football fans. If we take the business caps off for a wee second, we go, Juranovic struggling to get a game for us. We must have that department pretty well fucking, filled if Juranovic has, got a struggle. So it's very, very encouraging, that aspect of it from a football point of view. But of course, inevitably, we think about Celtic not selling players at the right time. Celtic undervaluing players when they could have got more for them. I remember the Van Dijk deal, for example. £13 million, and we were all getting giddy about, this is amazing. Fast forward 2 years, and remember our attitude to Tierney leaving. And Celtic's attitude kind of changed as well. We went 25 million, and it's not an instalment, it's on the fucking nose. So that tells you how quickly it can move. And it's very important that whilst we've got a replacement in, we're going to see us get the maximum value. Now, Steve-O, that is not the manager's gift. The manager is there to improve his football department, and he will be, if he finishes on the 1st of February, he walks into his training, he's got Juranovic, Johnson and Ralston going for right back. He's going, rubbing his hands, happy days. But he wouldn't give that away. Let's talk about managers giving the game away right now, because Mickey Beale's been saying that I've spoke about plenty. Has he got to me? Has he got under my skin? I think he has a wee bit. I don't think that was what he was trying to achieve. I don't mean me personally, but get under Celtic fan skin. I think he's very much playing to a gallery. But undeniably, when you contrast and compare about how Postecoglou's conducted himself since he came in at Celtic, I think there's a guy there that goes, there's a simple element to this, and I know how to get them on side. And I just feel he's setting himself up for a bit of a fall here, because he's in a situation where he can't really win this league title. Obviously they still can, but technically the chances are very slim. And I think the more he talks shite, the worse this league title loss will look. Whereas he might have been savvier to have just sort of stayed humble, not completely focused on Celtic all the time at any opportunity. Now, I appreciate some of the questions he gets asked are about Celtic, but he expands on them far too much. That's where he's giving the game away. See, Ange, more interested in my dinner, mate, than what Rangers do. Stuff like that. It's just a red card to the question. It's, I'm not talking about them, mate, because that's going to end up coming back and biting me in the arse. Mickey Beale in the pre-match is unbelievably suggested the word, and he should know already after calling us the other team, right? The backlash you got for that. To now use words, and I don't care, it will get taken out of context. And this is what I'm saying, he should know this by now already in the short stint he's had. When you start using words like, he's lucky because the money he's spent, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, I think firstly, it shows a real lack of respect for your opposite number. And secondly, it shows a naivety that those words will not be, lifted up to a universe that maybe they didn't come from in the first place and expanded on and then chewed up and spat out.
I mean, I think I'm like you. I've been listening to the things that I've been watching press conferences. I've been reading stuff, and I'm kind of mixed. I'm not giving maybe benefit of doubt's the wrong thing I'd say here. I think it's inexperience. I don't necessarily think it's disrespect, although I can understand how folk will take it.
Come into that though, Steve-O.
Exactly.
Scottish football.
But what I think it is firstly, I'll say I'm quite surprised the fact that he was up here for so long with Gerrard and he didn't catch on to how vital what people say and how they get twisted and how it gets reported.
Correct.
So you need to watch your bedside manner, if you want to call it that.
Yes,
but I think for me, I think it's not. It's a combination. One, the most obvious way to get people on side is to say the right things, right? It's to just toe the party lines and say whatever you think it is that fans want to hear.
Yep.
But I think see what you're saying about him talking and he elaborates. I don't necessarily think that's something that he's wanting to do. I think that's maybe an experience and nervousness.
Yep.
People will rattle on a wee bit more and expand. Exactly. And see when they're giving an open question or they just stop. Like, so I say, blah, 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 at the press conference, stop. And then I don't follow up. I just let you keep running and running and running and running. And he's not comfortable. He just give an answer, stop, and then wait for the follow-up. And then if he needs to expand. So I think it might just be a combination of first time being a man. Well, first time, he was a QPR for a coffee. But he was so he's first time really in a big high profile job where it's constant daily, people are wanting a PC every single day, press conferences, pressing questions, what about Ian, what about this? And he's just saying,
Evo, he must look up at a press conference, mate, right? And all he can see is like baldy cookums because they're all just writing. He must look up and go, is anyone listening to me? They're just writing everything he's saying. I know they're probably texting it or whatever. They must just be going, lap this up. Ask him one wee question. He runs a mile with it. He's absolute. He's going for the press.
The thing is I say, I don't come back to what I was sort of saying at first. There's me talking about rattling on. I says, no, I don't think it's. I'm giving benefit of the doubt because it's his first season, right? See if it continues to be a theme, then you can argue that it's becoming deliberate disrespect, right? I think it's just inexperience. And he's not quite get a bedside manner down. So he said, and it's just saying, as I said, sometimes they get fed a question like, Celtic have made 3 signings, what do you think of that? And it's easy to turn around and go, well, they've spent a lot of money.
But using words like lucky and stuff, though, he's got to know. This is getting into the language that I think Steve-O comes across for eventually now. Ange wasn't lucky. Ange took over a team that had dissected the first team. It had been dismantled, a very successful first team up to the COVID season, right? A very successful first team. He'd arguably resigned himself to losing our best striker for the last 3 years, Edward.
Yep.
Chris Ayers went to the Premier League for 13 million. This isn't lucky that 2 of your first team regulars are leaving.
No, he got a terrible hand.
Aye. On you go.
You know, and the thing is see, in terms of saying about working and spending a lot of money, I think the biggest interesting point there was, again, I saw something where there was like 6 of our players cost less than, I think it was Ben Davies and one other put together,
That's
6
damning.
players for 2. So that's not that. It's not lucky. It's just spending well. You know, money's there, and as people are pointing out, the money that came in versus the money that went out is like there's a profit to be made there.
But and see, the thing is, people want to get bogged down with net spend based on how much transfer outlay was, or how much did they recoup for the players that exited? How much did they spend? But that isn't the only way to value your revenue. It's about the players you brought in. What did they bring to Celtic in terms of winning a league title last year? 35 million Champions League money. Now, these players are adding value that isn't just based, STEVO, on, you know, sold a player for this, brought in a player for that. What's the net spend? It's more complicated than that. It's more complex than that, pal. It's definitely the value of what a player you've brought in can also be based on, well, what's the club done in that time since they've been here? How big a part did he play in winning that league title, for example? How much revenue did we make on the back of that? And that's where I think Ange can sit very smug and go, we're spending 1999 prices on players, you know? And we're bringing 2023 Champions League money in. I think that is where you judge.
No, it's like I say, it's about spending in the right areas and at the right prices, and spending smart. You know, again, I come back to the thing I said about wages, and apparently Rabbi Matondo gets 28k a week. Tell me that's a good spent value for money. So you know, there you go. That's 2 Celtic players' wages. Good Celtic players' wages.
Agreed. How many more times can we go to the J League? Be honest, because see, when you think about it, we don't know enough about the league, right? We've all been ignorant to it. We've all been ignorant to maybe Ange's achievements, how much I valued him, for example. I'll take that on the chin. I didn't hold them in the highest regard. But then the players come in for that league and you're going, fucking hell, can he really be that good? Like Hatate, for example, £1 to £2 million. Looked like it remember when he first signed, it was like described as like a utility player. He could cover at left back, he plays midfield sometimes, and you're like, oh, well, that'll do, a wee bit of squad filler, maybe we need that. I look at him right now and go, Calmac aside, you know, best centre midfielder in Scotland.
Stick on. Absolutely.
Now, this guy who's coming in, Avata, who was, you know, sort of out in the halfway line yesterday, spoke in the microphone briefly. Ange told him to start learning English a year ago. That was
on it.
So, apparently, Ivata worked with Ange before at Yokohama. So him and Maeda were his top 2 targets because he's worked with them before. Maeda said January only. And then there's a rumour that Ange didn't want to take 2 players out of Yokohama at the same time because of a moral sort of compass on it, going, I don't want to. And I'm like, fucking hell, fair enough. And now Ivata comes in at the end of his J League season as the player of the year of that league.
And he costs buttons.
And we're looking at this going, right, he's £1 million. And that midfield's pretty strong to say the least. Yeah,
absolutely.
I really can't wait to see what this guy can bring based on the success of scouring this market already.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ideguchi aside, it's been fairly solid. It's been great value for money, and everybody's come in, and you know, we say buys guys for a system, and they've all fit and they've all got that work ethic that's required for it, and it just seems to be a characteristic from the league, the culture that's ingrained in to the players. You know, you have to look at that Japan team playing at the World Cup. They're all doing and working and doing the same thing. To come back to your question of how often can we keep going back to it? It's I've got 2 things with that. One, I think it will become saturated eventually. Another, in fact, I've got 3 points. And the other one would be is how many other positions really would we want to be trying to fill? But the biggest one, and this isn't to, you know, poop on the party. My biggest concern is if we go and get in all these guys that are from a league that Ange's worked in, they're all from Japan or Asia or anything like that, and they come in and they've all because they want to work for him or they know of him. what happens, God forbid, when he goes? So do we want to be loading up our squad with all guys for the same league,
It
for the
becomes
same
a
teams,
reputational
and
thing,
the same?
Stevie. Steve, this is a brilliant point, because it becomes then a reputational thing. Is it because Ange is viewed as the messiah over there? Or is he opening an avenue where Celtic becomes the thing? Go to Celtic, you get a chance to play Champions League, and even if he's not there, now there's evidence of you go there, you play Champions League, you contribute, and you before you know it, there's big money coming for EPL, La Liga, etc. Monza, maybe. Everyone's dream move. But that's the difficulty. It's, can we split it into, or can we merge it into being a Celtic thing? Celtic's who you want to join, guys. Or, as you're kind of touching on there or hinting at, are they signing for Ange?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think obviously it's a brand and a platform. Celtic are going to be easy to be sold. And then again, but you look at there's somebody's mentioned Nakamura, but you look at the Nakamura buzz that brought, and then for last season, just Kyogo and that kind of buzz that it brought over in Japan, and bringing people a bit of investment. It's easy to sell it to, it should be easy to sell it to any player, no matter what continent they're from, right? But by just saying, what I mean is loading up the squad with all these guys that are from Japan. My just concern would be that if Ange goes, it would be no different. But like, say for example, we bought 10 hammer throwers for the midfield, and then Ange became our manager, and he's completely the type of player he does not want.
Yeah.
So I think there's got to be a cap on it, not because it's saying we can't keep going back to the market, but it just needs to be sort of balancing the squad out with players from different areas and different continents and different teams and working styles, and trying to mould them together into something that's more cohesive than just going, right, I'll just keep taking these guys for that league because that's the way to play. And that's fine in the here and now, but you've got to think long term. Unless the thinking is, we aren't saying about you might lose some of your heroes. Maybe he's just going, right, I can just keep going back to that league because I'll get in 2 here, but next year 2 of them will move on, so I'm just replacing them. So I'm not really building up the squad, just rotating them. So I don't know. As I say, that would be my only one concern, is overloading the team with people from one style, one continent, just because, as I say, it's like, what happens if the manager leaves? And you got Neil Lennon coming back in.
Well, this is it, I mean, you see the difference in approaches to the windows, right? And I actually think under Postecoglou, we've seen 2 different approaches in the windows. I'm going to look at the 2 summer windows, both of them, by the way. I don't know how much his fingerprints are on either. In fact, the most recent summer window was the biggest myth ever, which we all subscribed to, by the way. We all thought was like, like we've just signed a Danish international on deadline day. That's the 7th incoming player. This has been a great window. And you've got to be Jonathan Boyce Tim flick there going on, mate.
Terrible, I know. Fucking hell. Wilder.
But the mad thing is, the 2 January windows, I feel, are very much all a Postecoglou production already. I'm convinced, mate, that the guys we've brought in last January was essential in winning that league. All of them had an impact in the first team, apart from Gucci, who maybe arguably helped some of the other lads who hadn't lived in the UK before settle in. And maybe that was what he was brought in to do. In terms of the first team, he had no impact. But the other 3 are mainstays of that first team squad. Mainstays. Atati, Minda, O'Reilly. And then look at this window. J-League Player of the Year. He comes with a bigger rep than both Maeda and Tatati did.
Which is frightening to think.
He's going to come in the team, right? He's going to be a first-team player. And then I look at Johnston's impact so far.
Well, I'd expect him to be getting his stage.
Aye. And I look at Johnston's impact so far and I go, okay, that's first-team ready. And then we've got the curious case of Kobayashi, who's elevated from, coming into the team to above Jens, it seems, anyway, from outside in the pecking order. The 2 January windows seem to be the most compelling ones for Postecoglou's reign so far. Very strange times, because January, notoriously, is the shitest.
It's terrible. We're normally scrambling about for John Joe Kenny's at the end of it, you
Just
know.
took the name off
And-
the tip of my tongue. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
And the thing is, what's interesting, as you're saying that the January windows have been Postecoglou, I think that might be easy to go to because we've bought guys for the J League and they shut down. So that would, of course, be the case. What I would think would be interesting, see if we look at guys around, I'm even including Johnson, O'Reilly, and Haksabanovic, let's say, right? I'm not saying Ange doesn't have a hand in them, but I'm thinking how much does he know about these guys? I would believe, and I might be wrong, I hope it sounds to make sense. I think he'll have key demographics that he thinks players should hit. And it'll all be based on stats, whether people like that or not. You know, it'll be, this is the characteristics I need of a player. This is what I want my scouts to look for. And then it'll be presented with guys that are options that fit that bill. And I'm sure he'll run the roost over them by looking at videos of them as well as what's written in front of him. So I think guys like Haksabanovic and the guys that have came summer and the likes of that, they're probably people that fit a profile and have been put to him and have been bought. Whereas the guys that came in January, again, because they're for the J League, they're guys he's seen, knows about, and he's 100% confident in.
Yes. I think that's so. I think it's so crucial, that as well. And do you know what? The thing is, it looks like Ange's got full autonomy when you see these signings because, well, who else is like, you know, sort of vetted these guys other than him? Let's be real. But Celtic are winning here because it looks like they're going, see, we do give managers full control. We do give them full power. But really, it's because they're so low risk because of the actual fees that are getting actually paid that they're going, this is like, do you know what's very interesting, Stevo? Since he came in, he signed one guy from our own league, and it's a backup goalkeeper.
And even then, I don't think
he brings in very little from the youth. Right? Ben Doak, obviously, we know is going on to do a couple of bits for Liverpool right now, and maybe folk could say, well, you know, that one went under the radar. But he couldn't afford to take chances when he came in. Such was the cards he was dealt to be playing Ben Doakes in that for the get-go, right? So that's not on him. But he very rarely has brought anyone through for the youth, and he ain't looking in the SPFL for players.
Nope.
I find that fascinating because all through my Celtic sporting life, right, since the mid-90s to the present day, the squad's been littered with, not littered and overpolluted with them, but littered, sprinkled with, shall we say, that's a good better word, sprinkled with the best of the rest, right?
Yeah.
Barry Robson's, Paul Hartley's, David Hanna. I'm only kidding. But you know what I mean? Like, you bring in the guys who are hunting you a wee bit, like Lawrence Shanklin, maybe for, you know, in normal windows. You know, I don't think he's on anyone's even radar. I think he's on 18 goals or something already, and yet he'd be what I would describe Darren Moy as, Stevo, an underwhelming signing now. Such as you just know, Ange's got his antenna. It's way wider than the SPFL. I want your take on this. Do you think Postecoglou has been impressed by Scottish football?
Well, I mean, the proof would be as it looks at. Any time I've seen us play Aberdeen, I can't remember for the life. There's a wee guy who plays midfield, and he always seems to gravitate and goes over and talks to him. Right, I've noticed this a few times.
Okay.
So I think maybe he's took a wee shine to him. I do apologise for not knowing the guy's name, right? But he's a wee midfielder, and he's not too bad at
Who's he
Aberdeen.
For? Aberdeen.
Some boy for Aberdeen. Past twice we've played him, I've noticed that he's went and spoke to this guy at the end of the game.
Oh, really?
Right? Aye. So he seems to sort of gravitate. Maybe looks as if he likes him. Maybe I'm just reading into that, but it's the only time I've really noticed him go over to a particular player.
Okay.
In terms of that, I think is he impressed with what he's seen?
Steve, at the end of the games, mate. You've got radar eyes, mate. At the end of the games,
I'll come back the next time. I'll get the name. I can't for the life. I can pitch him, but I can't get a name because I'm not interested in Aberdeen players, so I don't know who his name is. But no, I think has he been impressed? It's hard to tell because I think he's not been impressed with the way we present our game and the way that the media make assumptions about you're playing Celtic or Rangers and all that stuff. So I don't think he's impressed with the outlook on our game by people inside it. Is he impressed with some of the teams? he says some nice stuff, but he's a polite guy. He says some all right things about teams, but I certainly don't think he's necessarily been impressed in any particular players, because we've not been linked to anybody, not even made up links. There's been none of them, and there normally is.
I think
So
he looks
no,
at SPFL, Stephen. He goes, "Nobody cares, mate."
nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
but the thing is, listen, I'm sure there'll be somebody out there that will have names that they think are good, right? But see, to be perfectly honest, looking at it, I don't think there's anybody in the SPFL teams around it that I would say, yeah, I can see them making a mark or
Let's
being worth taking
rewind,
on.
though, Steve. If you told me this time, 18 months into Angie's reign, we'd have signed 6, I think it is 5, 6 players for the J League.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, oh, wait the fucking new. We would have been thinking, oh, come on, we've got better on our own doorstep that don't need to settle in, don't need to adapt. And we'd have been probably highlighting them.
See, to answer that, do you know what I think, right? I think maybe there is players in Scotland that he thinks are no bad, right? But what I think shies us away from that is values. Because if Celtic or Rangers or whatever, they're interested in it now, what I would say about the J League signings are, they are what I call low risk. Because see, if you look, obviously the prices are cheap to begin with, but what I mean is see, generally speaking, see if you go and spend 2 million on a guy for the J League and he comes over and he doesn't quite make it, 9 on 10 times, one of the teams in his one of the teams in his home country back in the J League, yep, we'll take you back. And you almost break even, you don't lose money. Where see if you go, and this is where I want to bring up Burnaby, see paying 4 million for a guy like him, he's a right punt. Because see when you buy someone from like the South American League, see if they don't see if they don't succeed, you pretty much can just write that off as a loss. Because historically, teams in these leagues don't pay big money to buy guys back. Whereas, look at Itaguchi, he's already almost got an open invite to come back to the J League.
Yeah.
So these guys can always work their way back, and they'll find a team. Whereas if you start to dip into more ropey markets, it's a loss, and I think that's the way Scotland does. So if we go and we bought a guy for Scotland, and I think, see the Aaron Hickey thing, I use him as an example. Aaron Hickey's turned into a great player, right? But Celtic maybe looked at him and went, no paying 5 million, because see if he doesn't hit the ground running, we are never getting that 5 million back off anybody.
We'd already let him go once as well.
And that's why I don't think we're looking at Scotland.
I think there's a lot of value in what you're saying there. Let's talk about Burnaby, because it was interesting yesterday. I didn't think he had a great first half. Then he plays that pass for Maeda through, and I remember doing a pre-season post-match picture. We hadn't done PMP for a wee while, right? So we're quite excited to get Terry back on. I think it'll be 4 or 5 weeks. I remember having the conversation going, have you noticed the ball? The ball the midfielders are told to play is that one inside the opposition fullback that the winger gets onto. That was straight out the textbook, what Burnaby did. And I went, do you know what? See, for all his rawness, that is a guy who is listening to the message, because that is undeniably a trait that players have been told to utilise, is that pass. Find the winger, find him coming in, get inside the fullback. And he did that, and he go, do you know what? We praise Kyogo when he does fuck all but he scores a goal. I think Burnaby might not have had the best of displays in that first half, Steve-O, but for me, it's all masked, because that pass has been a killer ball, exactly on message for the coach, and shows me that there's a wee bit more fight left in what he can do at Celtic than maybe we've anticipated.
I think he's really got to do what Giakoumakis done this time last season.
It's a great point. Aye.
I think he's coming in, and I'll be honest, I thought he was rotten, right? And I know and listen, I'm not slaughtering the guy,
So did the judge.
And I'm not writing him off. I wouldn't do that. But what I would say is in the small cameos that I've seen of him, I think I'm surprised that we've paid as much money as we did for him. Right now, I know that guys could be moulded and they need to get used to the system, but I'm happy to be proven wrong, and hopefully he does that. But he looks uncomfortable, positional awareness and the likes is a bit ropey. Anything that we sort of made a mistake was all going down his side and it was getting exploited. He really needs to hit the ground running, because I believe that he's only really got to the summer to prove that he should be kept on and get more chances. Because let's face it, Taylor's always going to be the number one choice at this moment in time.
But were you saying that 6 months ago, how indispensable Taylor would be to our first team? I definitely wasn't.
No.
He's elevated himself, Steve-O.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, I'll be honest, I was not on the hate train for Taylor. That's harsh. I've criticised him, but he quickly learned to work into the system, and he's been tremendous. He's been solid. He's been consistent. But the thing with Bernabei is, I say, much like Jackie Marcus, he really needs to come in. He'll get that wee benefit of the doubt, where he'll get that 2 or 3 games where he can be ropey. But see if it merges into a 4th game, 5th game, and these mistakes are continuing to happen, that's when he's in trouble. He really needs to quickly up his game. Because look at Johnson. Look at Johnson, the other wing. He just came straight in. It was like slapping on an old pair of trousers.
Cost about half the money.
Exactly. It was like slapping into an old pair of trousers. It was as if they were always there, as if it was meant to be.
That's interesting. Kieran comes in. Hiya. You're on the TV.
Right, say hello and Chloe.
Hello.
Right, go on. Bye.
You're better than your dad.
Nosy.
Kieran comes. That's all right. Kieran comes in with a brilliant point here, and I like this for Kieran because he says, "Sir Alex, I mean, if ever there was a go-to, if there was a dictionary of define a good signing, you would go to Kieran. And Sir Alex you would go to Kieran, you would go to Sir Alex. Fucking hell,
yeah.
Kieran, I'm talking you up right now, mate. Sir Alex used to say you have to give the foreign lads a free hit in their first season and then judge them in the second season. He felt Bernabei grew into the game yesterday, and there's a player there. I think we need to be a wee bit patient on this. This is my other argument to it, Steve-O, right? That door was shut with authority. I think there's another argument to it, Steve-O, right? I think 3.75 million only to Celtic seems a big outlay. But I think Andrew's going, the bus here. Okay, I'm getting guys like Atatian for 1.5 million. But it's not just that, a magic tree down the bottom of the garden. You could just keep going to it. He goes, under 4 million for a potential first team player at 21 years old ain't a big investment if you want to call yourself Champions League, which I'm actually taking you to, by the way, 2 years in a row. Let's start getting fucking real here. That is nothing. It is a tadpole in the ocean. 3.75 million as a player in a Champions League squad. So maybe we need to kind of take a wee step back, right? And go, when you look at 3.75 million, let's not because we're comparing it to Celtic spending, right? That doesn't necessarily mean, take that prism away and go 3.75 million in 2022 when he joined for a fullback. Of course it's a gamble. It ain't a lot of money being spent, really.
No, it isn't. And as I say, it all comes down to where we see ourselves at. I think being awarded by a Champions League team with the money, it isn't a lot of money to spend. But if you think about it, and I'll go back to the season where we spent money like on Barcast and Agate and all that kind of stuff, right? See if you keep making 3.75 million Bernabei signings that don't work out, then it becomes an issue.
Yes.
Do it once is fine. But, that's the only way I'd look at it. Now, listen, I'm not saying that we Celtic should be spending 3.5 million. Absolutely, we should. All I'm saying is at that price point, I would expect something that resembled a wee bit more game ready, like your Johnson. What I'm saying is I wouldn't want to go back to the buying potential. We always used to say try and buy a project and hope that they hit it big. I wouldn't want the norm to be buying a potentially more expensive project player.
How many Johnsons though are there out there though? I think we've want to watch that. I look at the valuation that we've.
Whoever scouted him needs a pat in the back. That was solid.
And I mean, honestly, Tiger Woods' son is fucking unbelievable, Steve. Do you know what?
It's great. Somebody said that. I've seen he talks. He does. He sounds so like him. It's frightening. It's frightening.
That wee quiff of yours is coming back. I don't know. It's the Jonathan Boyce effect, mate. You come on this podcast, you end up like Tim Tim. But I mean, you know, Johnston. Let's talk about his display yesterday. I know I've kept you over an hour, by the way. I apologise.
Talk's fine, pleasure.
But Johnston yesterday, I thought, put in a display that backed up the Ibrox one, if that makes sense. He didn't back down, he doubled down. He went, don't think that was a flash in the pan because it was all revved up and up for it. He's talked the talk so far. He's very much walking the walk through as well. I think with the style of play he's got, the physicality he's got, he might just be a wee bit more suited, believe it or not, to Scottish football than what our Croatian international was. Believe it or not, I'm already calling it.
I think you're right. I think that one thing that he's got an intensity. He's got pace, and he just looks so switched on. My biggest criticism of Juranovic, and you know, I'm preaching the converted with yourself. Juranovic, there's no doubt. I'm never going to say he's not a good player because that is nonsense. All I'm saying is people need to temper expectation with Juranovic. Too often than not, he was always found running back, and this fabled speed that he had to catch folk as if it just diminished. You look at Johnson, and he's got that turn of pace to get back. He's in the right position. He's got the commitment. He's got the intensity. He's what people think Juranovic is, in my opinion. People built Juranovic up so much.
We've never had you on the pod before, Steve-O, right? And I've made this point before. I know you've been watching quite a lot of the shows, so you maybe have heard this viewpoint or not, but I want your take on it. Champions League. Now, Mudryk, obviously we now know of the ability he's got. So naturally, teams are going to focus on getting the ball to a guy that good. Fair enough. He was Shakhtar's Gareth Bale, if you like, right? He's a one of a kind sort of talent they would have. But other than that, I felt watching the 6 Champions League group games, Juranovic was the target for opposition teams. I thought they identified him as a weakness, mate. I'm not trying to have a pop at him, like deliberately. I just think there was a pattern evolving in these games where I went, I think teams have sussed he could be something to expose in Celtic's armory.
I mean, listen, he got a bit of a raw deal if you look at some of the guys that he played up against, right? He did play tremendous.
Totally fair as well.
Guys down his side, right? However, I'm a bit more, maybe I expect too much, but he was built up. This is going to be the platform, Champions League. And I thought, one thing I always took away from it, and it sounds silly to say, see if there was ever a picture of a ball getting into the net, Juranovic was always somewhere in that picture.
No, mate, the Mark Kearney has said that on several occasions.
What falling into the net, chasing it in, sliding, or a big mad slide or something. And it was often because, and I say this, positional awareness is terrible. And I don't care, like, I'm not buying, see what people said about, oh, he was brilliant at the World Cup. I'll be honest, I thought he was all right at the World Cup. Maybe that's been harsh. Thought he had a very good game against Brazil.
The Brazil game was a step up for everything else I'd seen of him. And I watched every game they played. Every game I watched. And generally, I thought Juranovic was good. I wasn't blown, my mind wasn't blown. But I've got to be honest, the Brazil one, and it's not because of the hype of the media, because I didn't listen to fucking arseholes like Gary Lineker anyway. I don't think they offer much to the table other than talk about politics and stuff that they know fuck all about. But I did feel his performance against Brazil. I went, whoa, okay.
I mean, I think, listen, maybe that's just because it's Brazil. And I know it's stupid to say, but, you know, if you can't get right up for it and be totally on it against Brazil, then you shouldn't be playing football. Or see all the other games that you maybe take for granted, he was just all right. And that's what I was saying when you were discussing previously about how much is he worth. In my opinion, the sample size of him is so small to justify 25, 20 million. It's just, in my opinion, it's pie in the sky. Aye, in my opinion, it's just pie in the sky. And the reason I think that is because, see, if you actually look at whenever Juranovic played the full season for us, he was steady and he was one of our better players. But in my opinion, he was never truly, truly outstanding. When you saw him in Europe, again, he was just all right. And then when you looked at the Champions League there in the World Cup, it was just all right. So he had a small sample size. Champions League 6 games, the games that he played in the World Cup. And what my point was, see playing 1 or 2 or 3 good games over that period, that doesn't define that's continuously the level that you're at. And I know that these appearances and that artificial inflates your price tag, but I think that big money is for more sustained 2, 3, 4 seasons of doing that, or you're just a mercurial young talent and folk will pay through the nose for you.
How do you feel about the ruthless approach for someone like Juranovic? Because my concern, I remember he scored the OG, right?
And then he laughed about it.
At Celtic Park.
Yeah.
How do I describe it? I felt he walked away smiling, right? And I felt, it's not just oh God, I can't. It was almost like nobody cares, mate, sort of smile. And I don't subscribe to that when you're in the Celtic first team. That should be you grabbing the ball at the net, getting it lumped up and kicking yourself, right? That's how it should feel to play for Celtic. This is the guy signed for Legia Warsaw only 12 months prior, by the way, right? Yeah. The fucking Polish league, right? This isn't some global superstar, right? Do you know what I mean? Going, I've came to Celtic for a payday. Let's get things right. And that's where I first instantly went, I wonder how Ange feels about that. Because if I've picked up on that sort of body language, I know fine well there's a guy far more qualified in this department than me who will definitely have spied it, right?
No, I think
how do you feel about the quick shifting of players that we're talking about? Maybe you've already hinted at it, the flip it, if you like, of. And my concern always was Juranovic. I went, he's getting spoke about in Celtic Twitter in particular, which isn't always the best gauge because they're all 21-year-olds and have fake accounts, or like they don't put their own name on stuff, but you know, they love a pile on in that. And maybe they're not always the best gauge to go by. But I felt the love in Juranovic. I went, they're fucking setting themselves up for a fall. I described it on Twitter that day after the OG. I went, hopefully folk are now saying this is a good player. Decent player.
Not a great player, yeah.
Not a great player. And it went fucking rife, right? I got abuse, right? Like it's, you know, I don't know, pissed in the fish tank or something. It was weird. And I was like, that's going to come you a cropper eventually if that's how personally you take it, where you're, as Ange said, you're heroes. How do you feel about players coming in, doing well, but then being sold? Not necessarily the first opportunity, but pretty much like a revolving door. It's not something we're used to as Celtic fans, STEVO. Let's be real here.
Yeah. No, it's not. But I think at the same time, it's smart. You know, I think the worst thing you can do is keep somebody beyond their requirement of use or they want to be here, right? So, you know, the days they gets in like a Scott Brown or a McGregor, guys that are going to do the whole career thing, they're short. They're few and far in between.
Yes.
In terms of the sort of bringing in the guys from foreign countries, you know, international players, they'll see Celtic as a platform, right? Nobody's coming in as an invested Celtic supporter and want to stay at Celtic. You know, even if you look at Larsson, we get the best years out of him, right? But Larsson pretty much says, I'm going to leave after X amount of period, and he's done it, right? So you might get that anomaly where you get somebody that stays 4 or 5 seasons. You might, but generally speaking,
one off that, I think it's a one off. He gave us timelines years as well.
Yep. You know, our timeline's about 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're about 3 years for a player, but I've not got a problem with it being a 2-year rotation. See, so long as like they're doing it's forward plan, there's folk coming into the place and ready to go, then it's just something that we'll need to get to grips with and get used to it. But I would rather continually evolve than stagnate, and that's the way you've got to look at it. And see, selling guys and them maybe being a bit earlier, Juranovic and Giacomakis being the prime example. It's not because, well, they've maybe bought into their hype and they want to move on, but at the same time, it's all about resale value and stuff, as I say. So see if we kept Juranovic until he was 30, we're going to get nothing out of him.
Aye.
If we do the same with Giacomakis, we're going to get nothing out of him. So you've got to look at it and say, right, yeah, he's maybe scored X amount of goals or he's been phenomenal for us, but let's sell him now for X million. We replace him with that guy, and we just, you know, but like the boy Cho, for example, if he's the guy that comes in for Giacomakis, he's 4 years younger.
Yes.
His stats are near enough.
More compelling.
There or thereabouts with 4 years or less playing time than Giacomakis. So why not get him in at 24? you're then maybe selling him on at 27, and it's a different story because he's built up that reputation over that period, rather than Jackie Marcus, who's came in one season further down the age line. So I've not got a problem with it. See, as long as it's done properly and it's not sell, nobody panic, then I'm all right with it.
I agree with you. I think there's a naivety, and maybe it's the innocence of youth, and maybe it's the younger element of the support that they start like putting their heart before they like take that away, because these guys might kiss the badge and all that, but sometimes they're using us as well, and we've seen that plenty of times. I'm very much in a position where I think I'm just looking at Celtic, as I've already touched on today, from subsidiary eyes. He looks at it from the outside and goes, "Oh, I know what to do here. I could bring in guys that will be desperate to join this huge club, but they'll already think they should have went to fucking Southampton, right? But they ain't going to get there straight away. We'll be the bridge. And you come, boom, off you go. And you come, do well, off you go." So I wonder if maybe we just need to take the romance out of it all and accept this might be what helps Celtic enter into the modern era. We can never compete with TV revenue, Steve-O. We're never going to get the same sponsorship deals these other clubs do, right? So what better way to keep our revenue up and keep our maximum income coming in than having guys in short term, do well, sell them. But see, when they join the club, don't sell the club to them as that. Sell the club to them as, because this is the flip side of this. They've all signed 5-year contracts. Almost every single player that's joined. Have you noticed that?
I think that's just future proof, and that's for this. I think that's for this inevitability of selling them after, say, 2 years. Because then you're like, we've got 3 years. Typically, you bring a guy in a 3-year deal. So what happens when you get to that 1.5 year period? You're January after season 1, where they've got a 1.5 years left of contract and it's ticking down. So you're either in the situation of you bow down and you pay them through the odds to try and keep them, or you sell them for less money. So I think the 5-year deals to give you that buffer. Do you know what I mean? Where you've got the 2 years and it's still 3 years, it's still a big chunk of contract at the tail end of it. And I listen, see what you're saying about selling getting guys in and selling the club and saying, no, we shouldn't be saying, come to us, we'll get you a move to a big team, right? But at the same time, I'm not saying you
They'll
put
be
it in
acutely aware, Steve-O.
Aye, you don't put it in that, you don't word it so blatantly, but it should be like, look at the players that came on to us and look how they've progressed. They've played the Champions League, they've broke into their national sides, they've moved on, and now they've won a trophy here. They're playing Champions League everywhere. So see if you mention the development that these guys have done, but you don't sell it as, and we'll do that for you. It should be, look at what we've done for players in the past. Look how we develop players.
Massively.
Look at our track record. And it's just being cute with the way you word it and frame it.
I love it. Steve-O, I could have spoke to you all day, mate. You've been an absolute... You've been gold. That's been a proper brilliant Sunday Sesh today, by the way, big man. Welcome aboard the Boisty Bus. There's a lot of love for you coming in the comments as well. So we'll get you added to the group chat. We'll make Steve-O a regular, lads. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? We'll make him a regular. I know it's shite that he's more handsome than me, but fucking that happens in life. That happens in life. Steve-O, you've been absolutely outstanding, mate. Have you enjoyed yourself on your first bus journey?
Have I? It's been good. As I said, it's good. That the one thing that I was when you asked me to do this, I was quite, more than happy, quite humbled to take part. As I said, that the one thing I like about what you have been doing is it's just, see what we're doing. It's just talking and being honest.
Yes.
And there's no agenda, and it's all everybody. It's just a good environment. Everybody's welcome. Everybody, look at the comments. Guys at Sporting Rangers that are watching this and commenting, everybody's getting on, everybody's happy, and it's good. And it's a good constructive chat. See, rather than trying to sell you something or push a narrative, or no wanting to just, like we've just sat there and says this guy was rubbish, that guy was rubbish. It's not because we don't support the team or we don't want them to do well. It's because you'd rather give an honest opinion, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. We cannot be bought. We cannot be compromised. This bus is independent on its own. Thanks to all you who's watched, everyone who's jumped on the bus. Thanks to STEVO. This has been the Sunday Sesh.
See you later, guys.
About me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.